So, what is an argumentation persuasion? And you have this dialogue here. You can't possibly believe what you're saying. Look, I know what I'm talking about, and that's that. And this is a perfect example of the very need to know how to correctly use argumentation and persuasion. Because what you see is, the basic response is like, you can't believe, like, do you really believe that? I'm like, look, I believe what I believe. I know what I know. I believe what I believe, and that's it. That's all that matters to me. And that's a real issue, because then, if you believe what you believe, that's fine, but you need to have a reason to believe it, especially if you're going to explain that, or you want someone else to believe what you believe. You're going to have any type of dialogue or conversation with anyone. If you're going to have any type of discourse with anyone, you need to be able to not only explain what you believe or explain what you feel, explain what you think, but you also need to make, whoever your audience is, and even yourself, it has to be logical. It has to be grounded in some type of reasoning or logic. And one of the things that we, in the world and the kind of society that we live in, is we move very much from this, right? I mean, we kind of live, we live in a society that truly believes that if you feel something, then that is reality. And the reality is like you're feeling, it may be an honest feeling, but that doesn't make it a reality, right? I mean, the issues of sexual identity, gender identity, racial identity right now are kind of like off the charts, to where they've done a series of interviews on a very progressive campus, college campuses, to where progressivism is almost kind of turned into a religion in many aspects. And so they would ask college students, like 19, 20, 21-year-old young men and women, that like a basic question of, like, they would ask like a short Asian girl, like, if you feel like you are a 6'5" black male, are you that? And they'll have a little bit of thought. I'm like, yeah, I think so. If I feel that I'm on the inside, if I feel that I'm a 6'5" black male, that I am that thing. And then inversely, I find a tall black male and ask him, like, if you feel that on the inside you're a 5'4" Asian woman, are you? I'm like, yeah, I think I can be. So, and that's, with a straight face, it's not a joke. It's not a practical joke, and it's not some like hypothetical study. That's not. And those are. This is a very small, it's an extreme example to illustrate a much larger point. Is that people feel, because they feel one thing, they think that they are, despite all evidence to the contrary and the concrete physical world around them. So many people now, it's very common for us to get caught up in the idea that because you feel something, that it is a reality. Because you feel something is true, that it is true. Because you feel an argument is correct, or you feel an idea is correct or just, then it must be. And that's not the case, and nor has it been the case for the majority of mankind. So we live in an interesting time, and this is something that now is really kind of commonplace, and beyond commonplace, it's accepted, and it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be commonplace, and it's definitely not acceptable. You don't have a right to tell someone else that the way that you feel is the truth, just because that's the way that you feel. So that's where argumentation and persuasion come in. You use clear thinking and logic. You also use emotional language and dramatic appeal. Okay, this is where you have a combination of argumentation and persuasion, because argumentation is just clear-cut logic. Persuasion is leaning on emotional language and dramatic appeals, beliefs, and values. And so you strike a balance, or you're supposed to strike a balance between argumentation and persuasion. You use logic, but you also use emotion as well. And we'll go about how to, balancing that out and how to use those correctly in your essay. But know that you're seeking a balance for both of those. Just like whenever, we discussed this whenever we looked at just a narrative, just, telling a short story. Right? I said that if I was like a journalist, or if I was a writer and I wanted to, I wanted to do something about like hunger, world hunger, and I wouldn't even have to have words necessarily. I could just use statistics. I could just have like a graph, a bar graph, a line graph, a pie chart, and I could look at, the ages, children ages 7 to 12 in the past month, how many have died of starvation. right? It'll be tens of thousands of children, right? And I could show that to you guys, or I could show that to a group of people, and they're like, "Well, that's horrible. That sucks." Yeah, like, well, of course it does, right? But nobody cries whenever they look at a pie chart or a line graph, unless you're like super right brain, really into math and numbers. But those are few and far between. Most people, they're not going to cry or get emotional at that. But if I were to tell a single story about a single child that lived in Venezuela, or that lived in Africa for that matter, wherever, right? That was so rail thin that you could see this, perfectly see his skeletons and his ribs and his backbone and the joints of his knees, and he had a distended belly and flies kind of circling his crusted lips, and his mother trying to feed him with like a mix of like clay and water to make his belly feel, full, and then tell the story of that child dying in his mother's arms at night. It's just one child. And if I was a good storyteller, if I had a talent for storytelling, we would all be crying and emotional over that, right? But that's just one kid, right? I mean, you get so much more attached to that story because you're using emotion, you're using drama, you're playing into the soul of the audience versus showing the statistics, which really are far more harrowing and far more dramatic, but it's not presented in a dramatic manner, right? So an effective story would be balancing those out, right? I would tell the story about the single starving child, and then follow that up with, now imagine that, and then imagine that times, I don't know, 1,000 or 10,000, because that's how many children this happened to, last month, right? You combine the two for a balanced approach and an effective approach. So, go to the next page. Here, because people respond rationally and emotionally, argumentation and persuasion are usually combined, which is what we just talked about. Here, how argumentation and persuasion fit your purpose and your audience. You'll start to see the same elements of all the previous two essays that we've written in class. You'll start to see these same things appear again, right? The first thing that you need to take into consideration is the audience. Who are you arguing or persuading? Whenever you look at this, I want you to look at this from two sides. One, you need to be able to argue or persuade your point of view, not to be able to take place like in like public debates or anything like that, right? But if you just, whenever you just have conflict in a relationship, right? If you can't argue or persuade, and when I say argue or persuade, I mean clearly present your point of view and the reason why you feel something based not only in emotion but based on reason and logic, and be able to clearly communicate that. And if you do, that will save you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in child support, alimony, and divorce. Because if you can communicate with somebody else, you can communicate with your partner for the rest of your life. It will save you a lot of money, a lot of heartbreak. It will save you jobs. It will save you a job that you really want, but you've got a boss that you can't communicate with, or that can't communicate with you. It will save you promotion. Well, it will increase your capital at a business. It will help you discern your relationships and your friendships for the rest of your life. Because not only is it about you being able to express your ideas and making sure that your ideas are worth expressing in the first place. Because you have to ask yourself, if you have these ideas, if you have opinions, right, that you want to voice, but they need to go through. Need to go through the matrix, your own matrix. Like, is this opinion valid? Like, do I have a reason to push this on other people's minds? Because you might need to shut up. If your opinions are just based in feeling and they're not based on any type of reasoning whatsoever, then you need to shut up because no one wants to hear it, nor should they be listening to you. Conversely, though, your whole life you're going to be sold things. Like, we live in a commercial, in a advertising, mecca of capitalism and consumerism. Our culture is 100% a consumer-based and a consumer-driven culture. From day to day, hour to hour, month to month, I must have these external things that I can buy that will then fill the void in my soul. And we are all emotionally like open wounds whenever it comes to the advertising industry, because we're raised in a society that we value what our advertisers present to us, and they don't present to us in logic whatsoever. They present to us in emotion. But you also have like politicians themselves, right, that are trying to sell themselves to you. Ideas themselves, right? People don't think that ideas matter, and that they don't, that ideas no longer hold weight, and that's a lie that's based on an idea that actually got hold. In the last 20 or 30 years, there's this wave of like neo-modern or neo-modernism or postmodernism thought that issued in a lot of these ideas of like moral relativism and the ideas that nothing matters, right? Like if you have certain feelings on, like, I don't know, like theft or morality. Like your morals aren't the same as my morals, and his morals aren't the same as your morals, and her morals aren't the same as mine, right? So if we have a different viewpoint on morality, then morality just must be all relative, and that's not really true, right? Like you can look at something like theft, for example. Like theft for me might mean something, and theft for you or theft for him. But we're all looking at the issue of theft, right? Like, you know, just because we don't agree exactly on the exact same morals does not mean that morals don't exist in the first place, right? But people took this idea and then they got into moral relativism, and they got into this idea that the only truth is that there is no truth, and that your existence is basically nothing. And then you can see the way that has affected the past, I don't know, the 3 generations of the past 20 years, right? I mean, I see it every single semester in this class, in my classrooms, where students are just nihilistic, like soul-sucking creatures that don't care about anything. Like, nothing matters. No, I don't matter. Nothing matters. I don't care. These apathetic creatures that exist now that have never existed in this capacity ever before in the human experience, right? Just the sheer apathy that exists now is really startling. And the reason for that is because there's a general idea that nothing matters, that you don't matter. People don't feel that they matter whatsoever, despite all evidence to the contrary, right? If you look at what happened. Was it yesterday with the church shooting? Right. Look what happened in Charlottesville. Right. People matter because of the actions of one person. Look at the guy that ran all those people in Charlottesville. Right. The actions of one person ratcheted up the racial tensions in the United States on 10-15%. One person's actions. The actions yesterday. Right. One person's actions ratcheted up social relations, political relations. People matter. Actions, individuals matter, right? And if you ever question that, just go out and do something bad. And then you'll see how quickly your actions matter. Therefore, you yourself matter. But it's easier to do something negative to prove that you matter versus do something positive. That's just an easier road to go down, right? But there's these ideas that the idea that nothing matters and that people don't matter, you as an individual, you don't matter, that's something that, you know, has taken a foothold in our society. And if people thought critically, if people were able to root out logical fallacies, they would have tossed that idea aside, but they don't. So it's important because your whole life you're going to be sold lies. And if you're not taught, if you don't know what to look for, we'll look at logical fallacies probably next class, but if you're not taught to look at logical fallacies, like whenever you see logical fallacies, which are indicators that a person's argument or ideas are not worth listening to, if you don't know that, you'll entertain them. So you need to be able to filter out the BS, filter out the lies, and filter out things that are not based in reason or logic, and it will help guide you through life. It's an important thing. So, here, whenever you're using, for the purposes of this class, when you're looking at argumentation or persuasion, one of the things that you need to be, that will be presented to you, is you'll be presented with, you know, a position. And then you'll be asked to take one side or the other and then explain your reasoning behind it. Why not? So some colleagues in universities have instituted a no-pass, no-play policy for athletes. Explain why this practice is or is not appropriate. Okay, so that's an issue that you could debate one side or the other, and then you make up your mind, and then you present the other side, or you present your argument, but you also are going to, we'll talk about this later, but you're going to anticipate the other side's argument, and then address, you know, maybe not all of them, but address the main reasons that you could assume someone would oppose your point of view, and then tear those down, or at least address those. Here, at the bottom. The root of all this is from the Greeks. It formulates our basic concept of logic, and it isolates three factors crucial to effectiveness of argumentation and persuasion, which is logos, pathos, and ethos. Okay, these are the three factors based on our reasoning and our logic and our points of view. Logos, pathos, ethos. These three are important. The number 3 is important just in general, like on a geometric level, on a philosophical level, on a metaphysical level. 3 has always been important to us. Just on a basic geometric level. There's a reason I teach English and not geometry. But how many points? What is the minimum number of points that you need to have a stable surface? Take a wild guess, but what number have I just been talking about? 3. Got it. Clues. Context clues, guys. I'm talking about 3. So it's 3. So if you have 2 points, you don't have a stable surface. 1 point, we know that's not a stable surface. That's a reason why when people go out to survey land and buildings and all that, they have a tripod, not a quad pod. I don't even know what that would be. It's a table. Quad pod's a table, right? You need 3 points to have a stable surface. Whenever you look at an essay, you look at your basic 5-paragraph essay. You have your introduction. Inside your introduction, you have your thesis statement. And that is your main point. Okay? Then you follow it up with 1, 2, 3 body paragraphs and a conclusion. Each body paragraph ties into your main point, and it is an example that supports your main point, right? Your 3 body paragraphs, your 3 main points support or back up your overall thesis statement. And then your conclusion, right, ties all of these together and gets you where you were trying to go from the introduction. 3. The number 3 is important. Here, you have it as well. So let's get into them individually. Your main concern in an argumentation persuasion essay should be with the logos or soundness of your argument. Any idea what logos might translate to in English?
Logic.
Logic. There you go. How logical is your argument? Statistics, examples, and authoritative statements you gather to support your viewpoint. This supporting evidence must be unified, specific, sufficient, accurate, and representative. Imagine you want to convince people that a popular charity misappropriates the money it receives from the public, which is a common thing. Your readers inclined to believe in the good works of the charity will probably dismiss your argument unless you can substantiate your claim with a valid, well-documented evidence that enhances the logos of your position. Okay? So, the next part of this 3-pronged attack is sensitivity to pathos, or the emotional power of language, is another key consideration for writers of argumentation persuasion. Pathos appeals to readers' needs, values, and attitudes, encouraging them to commit themselves to a viewpoint or course. The pathos of a piece derives partly from the writer's language, connotative language, strong emotional overtones. They move readers to accept a point of view and may even spur them. So, advertising and propaganda generally rely on pathos, which again is something that we see on a daily, hourly basis. Depends on how often you look at your phone or check your Twitter feed or Facebook feed. Explain to me this. The new iPhone. There's 2 of them, right? There's iPhone 8 and there's iPhone X. So the new iPhone X, how much does that cost? Yeah. It's like $1,200, right? $1,200. The new iPhone 8 costs, $600-700, maybe $800, something like that. So, explain to me why I feel the need, why should I buy an iPhone X? The obvious answer is that I shouldn't buy an iPhone X, but that's not what I feel.
Let everybody know you're not broke.
Yeah, let everybody know that you're not broke. Yeah, there's a thing in. I used to date a girl that lived in Dallas. Whenever I go see her, we'd go out and we'd encounter these people that they would refer to as $50,000 millionaires. And you have it everywhere you go, right? But it's people that live in crappy apartments, drive crappy cars, and they save all their money up for the weekend because they need to appear to be something that they're not. So they got the shoes, they got all the external things, despite the fact that they're swimming in debt because they make $50,000 a year, and that's nothing in a town like Dallas. So very much it's a status symbol for one, but it goes beyond that though, right? Because especially with something like the iPhone, right? Because it's not even about showing like I'll get the iPhone. I'm just going in my room like Gollum with the ring, and just lord over it and just like stroke it, pet it like my precious, right? So why, right? Because it doesn't make sense, right? Because I mean, one, very few people have just $1,200 to just throw down on a phone, right? The way that they get you to get those stupid phones in the first place is they can just add it to your monthly plan, right? So it'll be like $10, $15, $20 extra a month. I can afford $20 a month for a $1,200 phone, except the problem is that $15 or $20 a month for a $1,200 phone, by the time it's going to take you to pay that stupid phone off, that phone will be obsolete by the time that you pay it off, right? Because that phone's going to be obsolete in like a year and a half, right? And at $10 or $15 a month, and $20 a month, you're not paying off a $1,200 phone anytime soon. It'll be years before you pay that thing off, right? Plus, you're going to have to go through the fact that you're going to break like 3 of those stupid phones, and you're going to go max out your insurance if you have insurance on the first place, and it's going to keep piling up and piling up. So there is no logical reason to buy that, nor is there a logical reason why the phone below it, which is basically the exact same phone, it just can't unlock with your face, like that's a necessity. Like I'll never be able to shave again, probably. But so if I have like an $800 phone, which is even then is kind of ridiculous to buy in the first place, even though I've got one. The price difference between those two, there's no logical reason for it, right? Because the iPhone 8, it unlocks with your face, and then it has like emojis, like little panda bears that will mimic your face. You can send to your friends. There's no reason for it. But I have an emotional attachment. I'm pretty sure somewhere deep down inside, if I get that new phone, it will fulfill a void in my soul, and it will make me feel like a more complete person the moment that I buy it for the next week, and then it'll go on to like the next shoes I'm gonna wear, or whatever, right? And advertising in the United States is really a study of high art, of psychological manipulation and artistic development. I mean, advertising practices in the United States are really, really sophisticated, and you could argue that they were really, really beautiful if they weren't so subversive to our culture, because we have this attachment to things that we feel that if we buy them, they will complete us. They will tell the world what we want the world to know about us, and that's something that can be purchased. Which that falls back on the issues of the allegory of the cave and a lack of enlightenment, right? Because and we'll talk about this with ethos as well, right? So if I want to, and we'll see examples of this here, right? Braun, experience the power, bold yet subtle, clean, masculine, the scent for the man who's in charge. Well, yeah, that's Braun cologne, right? So for me myself, I feel it's important for you guys and for the world to know that I'm a man. I'm a well-balanced man. Not only am I rugged and fierce and masculine, but I'm also intelligent and capable of being clean and balanced, right? I'm not all one or not all light and dark. I'm a balance of the two, all right? And so, why spend years and years, furthering my intellect and furthering my body and earning my place as a man, or earning my status my status or my symbol as a man's man. Why do that when I can just pay $30 for cologne and I'll spray it on me, and it'll and it will do that. I can achieve all of these things. I can purchase these things now, right? Because that's how advertising has been. That's the lane or the avenue that advertising has opened up for us as a people, right? You don't have to earn anything; you can buy it. Right? You can buy your status, you can buy your manliness, you can buy your femininity, you can buy whatever it is. And so it works using pathos. Same thing with, which I don't even know what this means. Black lace is for you. You can tell this is like an ad from like the 50s or something. The woman who dresses for success, but who dares to be provocative, slightly naughty. Black lace, perfect with pearls by day and with diamonds by night. Again, I'm not really sure what that means exactly, but I kind of know where they're going with it. Right? It's a balance, right? Because as a modern woman, you're sophisticated and intelligent and but you're still wild and sexy and where it counts. And, all of these things, none of which has to be earned, right? You can just buy these things which appeal to the base core. We're so ripe for manipulation. And we really haven't evolved that much from our animalistic needs. That, advertisers, they exploit these things and the things that our animalistic kind of natures, are really base desires. Again, to achieve those things, you can achieve them. It just takes work, and I'll bypass it and I'll buy it instead. So that's how the advertising industry uses pathos. And then finally, you have ethos. I ran out of. You need to use. It's good to use ethos, which is credibility or integrity. We talked about the Pepsi commercial snafu that used Kylie, Kendall Jenner. I'm sorry, I don't do it on purpose. Whatever. One of the young Jenners, and she had the Pepsi can, and she came out of this crowd, and she goes to the police officer, and she's gonna right all the wrongs. She's gonna be the spokesperson. She's the face of social justice and equality, all that. The main problem, the whole thing was fine. They messed up on the ethos. She is not the spokesperson that needs to be that person, right? She has no credibility whatsoever as a spokesperson for equality, for justice, for community development, nothing, because she hasn't done nothing, right? Now, a perfect person that they would have put that could have been here. You guys know who Malala is, the Middle Eastern young woman that had acid thrown in her face. She has like half of her face was melted off, and because she was attempting to educate herself as well as educate fellow young women in the Middle East. But the only problem is that she has acid thrown in her face, and half of her face is literally melted off and is scarred up. And she's had reconstructive surgery, but she doesn't look like one of the Jenners. And let's be honest, if you want to see in a tummy-bearing tight tank top and some really tight, squeezed into blue jeans, you want to see Malala or you want to see Kendall Jenner? You can be honest. You want to see Kendall Jenner because she's a beautiful physical specimen, despite what is or is not there, right? So she looks good, but she lacks credibility. That's why that commercial didn't work. Because one, it's a superficial commercial. If it's a superficial commercial, then you need superficial people that are pretty on the inside. You don't care what's on, or that are pretty on the outside. You don't care what's on the inside, right? But whenever you try to go deeper, whenever you try to go to the next level, you try to have substance. You better make sure that your the spokesperson, the face of your campaign, has something to go to the next level. You look at these ridiculous like Calvin Klein or not Dior. Some of the maybe it's Calvin Klein. Some of the perfume commercials that they'll try to get they'll try to be really deep and they'll have like some kind of weird poetry. Brad Pitt was like he was the face or the spokesperson for a famously female-driven perfume / cologne like campaign, and it was a big deal because Brad Pitt was the first male spokesperson they had. So they did this commercial with Brad Pitt, and he's like 40 years old. He has like the long hair, and he's like looking off into the distance like this, and it's something like worlds collide, atoms fall upon themselves and break back again. There's you and I, and he just like it's like weird bad poetry. And it's Brad Pitt. What the hell does he know about poetry? Nothing, right? Like he puts on makeup for a living, and he reads other people's words, and he's good at it. That's fine, but he's just good looking and like dance puppet. That's what you're there for. Right? Let me try to be deep with me. Get out of here. And that's when like immediately the next day, like Saturday Night Live, they made a parody of it when he looked like an absolute idiot, because he is an absolute idiot trying to think that he's going to bring perfume to the next level, because perfume is a surface level product. You can't go deep and philosophical perfume, right? It doesn't work. Because there's nothing deep. It's something that you literally spray on top of you to make people like you more. Is the definition of external attraction, right? So, but the fact that they don't see that they fail to see the logos, the pathos, and the ethos of these things are what makes failed versus successful marketing campaigns, political campaigns, arguments in the first place. So, credibility must be there. Let me show you this real quick, because I'll try to keep it. Oh, there it is. All right. Okay. So a professor helps a student apply philosophical theory, which is what we're working with, ethos, pathos, and logos, when asking out his crush, and it actually worked. So dating's not a science, but by the look of this student's experience, it might well be an art. Student Jake, who his Twitter handle, I guess, is Squid Flippers, which probably is part of the reason why he had trouble getting a date in the first place. Went to his English professor for advice, asking about his crush, Hannah. Yo, I have zero skills when it comes to texting girls, so I legit asked my English professor to help me draft a text to a girl, and we straight ethos, logos, and pathos my way into a date, which is brilliant. So this is the argument. This is the argument that his English professor laid out for him, and this is Jake enacting it into text message form. So we'll see how he does it. Ethos, logos, and pathos, again, as a reminder, are the three methods of persuasion used by Aristotle and rhetoric, a philosophical text which dates back to the 4th century BC. Aristotle, if you recall, at the beginning of the semester, whenever we looked at Plato's allegory of the cave, Aristotle was Plato's played heavily with between Socrates and Plato. So ethos essentially means appealing to an individual's moral values when making an argument. Jake's professor instructed him to apply the principle of ethos to his asking out efforts. The ethos here that he applied is, I don't want to come on too strong or pressure, just a friendly outing. I'm kind of cool sometimes. So ethos establishes what? Legitimacy, or your stance. What ethos is your credibility. Okay? What's his credibility here? How does this establish his credibility? Well, I don't want to come on too strong or pressure, just a friendly outing. I'm a nice guy, right? Not a creeper. I'm not super forceful. I'm not demanding that you go out on this date with me. I want this to be something that you agree to do, and we can see how it goes from there, right? My credibility is that I am not a threat to you or anything, but I would like to get to know you. That's his ethos. Logos is practice of the detailing of the facts or figures to support the claims. So he uses free food, a break from work, and a good low-stress time to support his request for a date, right? So the logic of it is you get free food, you get a break from work, and then it's a good low-stress time, right? So why should I go? Logically, give me a logical reason why I should go. Free food, low stress, it's a good time, and it's a break. Okay, logically makes sense. And then pathos, appealing to the audience emotions. Jake's pathos was simply, it will be fun. So emotionally, what is involved for me? It's a fun time. Okay, fair enough. So Jake put this theory into practice and sent Hannah a text asking her out on a date. He says, hey, I hate to come on too strong here, but if you ever could use a stress-free night after work or need some food to keep you alive while you're moving into your new apartment, I would love to take you to dinner, wrote Jake. It would be fun and a great way for me to see your dog, which is low-key why I'm doing this. Another element that he does here, whenever we look at appealing and using pathos and dramatic language, besides the fact that it'll be fun, he also uses humor, right? In two ways. One, if you need some food to keep you alive while you're moving out, right? That's a dramatic statement because obviously she's not really starving, but he's using a bit of a drama to amplify the situation, and then also addresses the dog. It'll be a fun way for me to get to see your dog, which is low key while I'm doing this, which works on two levels, right? Because they do jokes about this, but like, there's like, if a guy like ever struggles to get a date, like he just needs to go to the park with the dog, like, and then the women will just come running to him. There's also a reason why single fathers have much less difficult time getting dates than single mothers. It's because there's something about a man that can keep a child alive, let alone just be a good dad, that women find attractive, versus a single mom who Ben will run 500 miles in the opposite direction because that screams of, there's a lot of other issues around that. But so we have not only that, but you also have this low-key while I'm doing this, which also does, it's kind of the psychological and comedic thing with what he does of whenever men will insult a woman that they like in order to establish kind of a rapport. But if you joke with the girl, and you kind of take the wind out of her sails, not maliciously, but just pick on them, that establishes a particular type of relationship where you're not afraid of her, and you're not afraid of her rejecting you, and you don't really necessarily need this affirmation from her. So guys do that all the time. Whenever they take that and they just amp it up a notch, and you'll hear like this. It's very common to hear like that. Like, well, if you want a girl to like her, just be a jerk to her, just treat her like crap. Well, that's not. I mean, that's not really the best thing to do, really, if you want a girl to like you for an extended period of time. But he takes that idea, like an amplified idea of what he does here. Like, yeah, I'd like to see you, but I'm really kind of doing this to see your dog, right? Again, a bit of comedy, and also establishing some type of boundaries, even though he's asserting himself as a nice guy. So all of these things all work together, and he actually ends up getting the date. Let me see. Here, this is how it was laid out. There's ethos, logos, and pathos. Here he has all these listed out. He also has here, the purpose of it is to persuade her, the speaker here, and then the audience, which is Hannah, here. Okay? So he has all of this laid out structurally. And this is a brilliant thing. This is a perfect example, because this is just like a date. But it's a perfect example to really any type of argument or persuasion. Like if you want to raise at work, if you want to convince a girl to date you, if you have an idea that you want to present to someone that you want to be taken seriously, do this. Structure out your ideas before you say it. Don't say whatever comes off the top of your head. Also, look, Hannah just moved to the new apartment, likes photography, doesn't know that I know that. I instant stalked her. Works a lot, single, likes shiny suit, has a dog. So he's not like a creep with like with binoculars and a long-range lens taking pictures of her like a true stalker, right? But he actually did some work. Like he actually cares enough about this girl to find out what she likes, what she doesn't like, and is going to present that to her in a manner which is which is ethical, but actually he's actually done a little bit of work, on his end as well. Take that. Use that kind of thing whenever you apply that to any type of academic setting. You can use that to a professional setting. When it's a relationship, right? Whenever you have a conflict in a relationship, right? You don't start just when you get mad at someone in a relationship and then you start saying all the crap that comes off the top of your head, all the things that they do wrong, if they're not related to what the current problem is whatsoever, don't say anything. Sit down, think about what you're going to talk about, and then express them logically, clearly. Use emotion, use pathos, use ethos correctly. Okay, we will we'll pick this up on Wednesday. You guys have a good day. Thank you, ma'am.